This week, the long-awaited and widely publicized Ukrainian counteroffensive against the Russians began. But before we get into it, we would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, and in return, we will keep providing quality videos just for you. Thank you. In the last 2 months, the Ukrainians have been conducting preparatory shaping operations to get ready. These are meant to weaken the enemy, confuse them, and find out what their strengths and weaknesses are. To put it another way, it is to shape the enemy in a way that makes them easier to beat when you finally attack them. The Ukrainians moved from planning to execution this week. They have started the first part of their counterattack, and instead of using all of their troops and all of the weapons that the West gave them, which is 9 armored units and an infantry force to back them up, they have chosen to launch several smaller offensives with much smaller teams. So, we are going to recap what happened during the week to keep you updated on the nitty-gritty of what might be one of the greatest military operations in history. On Monday, at the beginning of the week, Ukraine started a few small investigations around the town of Vuhledar, which is in the southeast of the country. The Ukrainians used feint attacks to draw attention away from Velika Novosilka. There were also 2 company-sized strikes on the town of Vuhledar. It was from Vuhledar that the Russians repeatedly launched assaults in the late winter and early spring. The town is also a key spot for the Russians because there are railroads close by that the Russians use a lot to feed their men. Most likely, the attacks on Monday were just Ukrainians checking out how strong the Russian defenses are in the area to see if this would be a good place to attack in the future. On Tuesday, Monday's actions by the Ukrainians were a clear sign to the Russian forces that the counteroffensive had moved into a new phase. They had to do something, so at 2:50 a.m., they blew a hole in the Kakhovka hydropower dam in southern Ukraine. As a result, a huge wave of water rushed down the river. By morning, it had reached the city of Kherson and flooded towns and villages on both sides of the river. But this wave also destroyed several Russian positions on the south bank of the river. This led to videos of Russian troops wading through dirty floodwater, or, in one case, climbing to the tops of trees to escape being swept away. In military words, the river south of the dam is now totally unusable, which limits Ukraine's choices in the short term. Still, the floodwater will be gone in a little more than a week, and the river below the dam will be back to something like how it was before. On Wednesday, after the dam exploded, Ukraine stepped up its strikes on Bakhmut, a small city in the east that the Russians recently took control of after over 6 months of hard and very expensive fighting. The very expensive Wagner mercenary group led that Russian takeover. Once they had taken control of the city, they handed it over to the normal Russian troops. The Ukrainians started to attack them with Polish T-72 tanks and Ukrainian BMP personnel carriers, focusing on the northern and southern sides of the town, where the Russians were weaker. They moved quickly and made good progress. Some accounts say that they broke through the Russian military lines by 1.5 kilometers. The Bakhmut attack serves 2 purposes. First, the city has a lot of meaning for the Russians because they lost so much blood and money to get it. Because of this, the Russians are afraid of going backward, so they keep thousands of troops there. Second, if Russia loses land here, it will make it much harder for the normal Russian military and the Wagner private group to get along. So, it was important for the Ukrainians to destabilize Russia by taking back Bakhmut. On Thursday and Friday, after launching speculative attacks in Vuhledar and putting a lot of Russian troops in place in Bakhmut, Ukraine began the biggest attack of the week from Orikhiv, moving south towards the important Russian logistics hub of Tokmak. This area has been thought of for a long time as the best place for Ukraine to focus its counteroffensive. As a result, the Russians have put up a lot of defenses in this area, including multiple lines of trenches, anti-tank pits, traps, and minefields. Early in the morning, 4 Ukrainian companies in American armored army vehicles and German Leopard 2 tanks rushed straight into the Russian defenses that had been set up. Overall, the attacks broke through the first line in some places and, more importantly, helped figure out where the Russians were. The Ukrainians then used GPS-guided HIMARS rockets to take out these sites, which let the Ukrainian troops pass. This is where the fighting is the worst, and Ukraine has sent more troops to this area since then. Their long-term goal is to get to the coast and cut off Russia's land bridge to Crimea. Only time will tell if the operation would be successful or not. One thing is certain, it is clear that the Ukrainians are now committed, that the counteroffensive has started, and that it will only get worse and bloodier from here on out. That is all we have for you today. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and the like button if you enjoyed this video. Also, hit the little bell so you get notified when we post new videos like this just for you. Thank you for watching. Till next time.